Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. Jeb Hawks, the Leviathan Messiah, or is he? Jeb is a really interesting character because, and I want to preface this by saying this is before Star Wars. The Leviathan arc of Dark Shadows is before Star Wars. This is before Anakin Skywalker, the whole him being Darth Vader, him becoming Darth Vader. No, I'm not sitting here saying George Lucas was a Dark Shadows fan, though that would be really really fucking cool. Um, when I look at Jeb Hawks, specifically Jeb and some of the Leviathan Child iteration, I notice one consistent thing. The character itself really keeps questioning Barnabas's authority and challenging his authority, not just as Jeb, but as the kid too. He doesn't want to follow the Leviathan book, which is odd because that's exactly what Barnabas has been instructed to follow. This is one of the most puzzling things about the character itself. Not just the character of Jeb Hawks, but the character Michael Maitland played as well. Because again, we have a character who's challenging Barnabas's authority in the sense of, well, we don't need to do it by the book, but that's how I've been instructed to do it. Like what it's a it's a confusing thing for Barnabas to understand because this is how all he knows how to do it. Again, to be clear, Barnabas himself is not a Leviathan by any means. He's not, he's not one of them. He's not in their inner circle. He doesn't know their exact history to the degree of what they can become, what they are. Because if he did, he would know their weakness as a werewolf. Also, he doesn't he's only been told to follow the book, so that's exactly what he's following. It's not that he doubt. I don't think it's the fact that Barnabas is doubting what the character Michael Maitland's character. Uh, it was Michael something, I forget, but even Jeb Hawks' character, I don't think he's necessarily doubting them by what they're saying. He's just following the instructions he was given. And so when I think about this, and especially Jeb Hawks too, I really look at Jeb Hawks like a reverse Anakin Skywalker. Instead of someone who started off good and then went went evil, here's somebody who starts off evil and went good. And by every stretch of the imagination is one of the most immature characters in Dark Shadows history. I don't mean that as a knock against Christopher Pennock. He nailed this character to a T, and rightfully so. He's somebody who was so immensely talented, as it was the rest of the cast. I'm not taking anything away from them. But I really want to focus on Christopher here because he's somebody who does not get the credit I feel he deserves for portraying Jeb Hawks. This character who literally can destroy you at any given moment by he doesn't need to go into that room to kill you. He can kill you with his bare hands if he wants to, but when you go into that room where he can change into that shape, whatever it is, it's terrifying. And here's this character who's, he's been selected by the Leviathans at birth to become their next Messiah. He's the chosen one, just like Anakin was the chosen one. You see where I'm going with this? There is a really, I truly think George Lucas did watch the Leviathan arc in Dark Shadows and got madly inspired. It could just be me. Who knows? I could be just going crazy, but going. Uh, but when I think of this character of Jeb Hawks, he does end up falling in love with Carolyn. At first, like, he does try to take her to the room, but he's stopped by Quentin. And there always seems to be somebody interfering in his plans. He finally suspects Barnabas of betraying him, and Jeb does something about it. But it's just like, okay, really, in all fairness, if Jeb would have just followed the rule book like Barnabas wanted to, Barnabas couldn't have fought him on anything. So that's the most interesting part about it too. Again, the rule book was not exactly followed by Jeb Hawks' character or Michael Maitland's character either. So it's sort of not totally Barnabas's fault that things go to shit here. It's somewhat Jeb Hawks's. It's somewhat Michael Maitland's character. Again, I'm not trying to put this all on Jeb Hawks. Sure, Barnabas has some things to answer for if you're a true blue member of the Leviathans. Like, dude, we trusted you with Brennan converting everybody, and yeah, you helped convert some people, but then you chose to be good and then lie to our guy who. But in the sense, though, too, before you were lying to him, he's sort of going off the rails, not wanting to go by the book, which yes, we did tell you to go by. Again, it's one of the most interesting conflictions of a character that you'll ever see in Dark Shadows. One of the biggest, in fact, because it's like, well, wait a second, he doesn't want to go by the book. That's all Barnabas knows. I mean, you might know other ways because you know what the Leviathan have in store for you, and you know what the Leviathan are all about. So you know you can deviate from the book. Barnabas doesn't know you can deviate from that book, and he doesn't really want to simply because he's been told to follow it. And I don't think again, do I think either guy's wrong? No, not necessarily, but I think the butting of the constant heads is what ultimately causes the downfall of Leviathans. That, Barnabas betraying him. So I think them butting heads about which direction to go, which direction to take. Hey, no, I was told to do this. Well, I'm telling you to do this. It's like, and Barnabas is just like, okay, who do I listen to here? Do I listen to this kid who's going to be the leader? But I mean, that's not what I was told to do. Again, it's one of the most interesting character decisions made in Dark Shadows history, where you have a character in Jeb Hawks who's wanting to break every rule that the Leviathans have laid out for Barnabas, but by doing so, he's sort of causing this wicked demise, whether he realizes it or not. It's really really strange, and then the things start unfolding. He starts falling in love with Carolyn, and really the Leviathans don't take the biggest thing into consideration when you're dealing with a man. And you could say, well, he's not a normal man. Who in Dark Shadows is anymore. This is I'm kidding. um, he's still a man though, and men have needs, and you know what those needs are? They're called sex. And was Jetbox gonna get sex if he stayed in that room? Probably not. Probably not. He probably would not have ever experienced, skin on skin, nakedness with Carolyn. And, that's considering that's what he was wanting. Well, it's time to get hitched and ditch the Leviathan, destroy the altar, or smash the box, etc., etc. And that's exactly what he and Barnabas do. And he marries Carolyn. He goes off with her. They have sex, yada, yada, yada. And he falls in love. Do I forgive Jeb Hawks? Let's see. Do I forgive Jeb Hawks? Let's see. Who did he murder? Paul Stoddard, the father who was not the best of the fathers of Carolyn. He murdered some detective guy. Let's see. Who else? Who else did he get rid of? Oh God, there was a couple in there. Let me tell you. Do I forgive Jeb Hawks? Forgive's a funny word, but I guess I do. And here's why, too. Jeb had so many people wanting to do the right thing by him as a Leviathan, like Bruno, for example, but yet he sort of downgrades Bruno, too. It's like, dude, like, again, he's a character who's been told you're going to be our messiah. But in a lot of ways, you could say, well, Barnabas does a lot. And I'm not taking anything away from what Barnabas does. I'm not taking away any little pebble or little plan that Barnabas does to sort of avert the Leviathans. I'm not taking anything away from that, anything away from Quentin, anything away from Dr. Hoffman, anything away, away from anybody. But as much as you want to give Barnabas the credit for the destruction of the Leviathans or the them going away, you also have to give credit to Jeb Hawks. As crazy as that sounds, as crazy as that might be, Jeb Hawks falling in love with Carolyn is what all and breaking really prior to that breaking a lot of Leviathan rules is what helps ultimately do cause the downfall of Leviathans. Again, you can debate with me how big of a deal that really is at the tipping scale. That's fine, but I think it's a bigger deal than what most think because again, this guy was not born of a mother and father. He was born. He just arrived. He just appeared for God's sakes. He say the Todds were handed a baby and that baby was not made naturally. That baby grows up to be Jebox. Um, again, a supernatural creature becoming human. An actual true blue supernatural creature. This isn't like Barnabas, where Barnabas actually was goddamn human at one point. This isn't like Quentin Collins or Don Briscoe's character. You know, it just isn't. This is something completely different, where you have a character who's truly supernatural. This would be the equivalent of Satan coming up out of hell and developing a goddamn conscience. But it's not Satan; it's the Leviathan, and here's their chosen, Messiah, who again is completely supernatural but becomes human by falling in love with the most hottest blonde you can imagine in Nancy Barrett's Carolyn Collins' daughter Hawks. They get married after all. And how much were they both in love? Yeah, Jeb did love Carolyn, but Carolyn loved Jeb back, and Jeb's death is the one of the most ultimate proofs of that fact. Um, yeah, I do forgive Jeb. I think that when you look at the character, he's one of the most complex characters in Dark Shadows history. And again, I give credit to every actor who went through the motions of playing each part. But I really think Christopher Pennock put a beautiful touch on a character that could have easily fit into a George Lucas Star Wars saga easily, easily. Um, I also think that again, when you play a character, excuse me, when you play a character that well, and the writers are realizing, oh my god, this guy is so likable and he's so handsome. What did we do? We wrote this guy as a heel, and so the writers fix it. Never fall in love with Carolyn. I forgive you, Jeff. I forgive you for turning Barnabas back into a vampire. And I guess Barnabas somewhat does. I mean, he smashes the Leviathan box, and the altar's destroyed. Yeah, so what? Barnabas burns down a building, but it's semantics. Oh my my God. Jonathan Fritzline, there will be never, no breathing air will ever come from a room again. That's on fire. Oh my God. If you need someone to commit arson, hire Barnabas. Oh my God. What a scene. I also think, too, that, again, a supernatural creature completely becoming human was really, really shocking for Dark Shadows. And how shocking it was. Falling in love. Again, look, we know the stats of Dark Shadows. If two people fall in love, it's generally not going to last. Happily ever after does not exist in Dark Shadows. It hasn't existed in Dark Shadows in a long goddamn time. Um, so if you have this happy moment going on in Dark Shadows, just look at your watch and wait for that shit to go completely bad. And it does, by the way. It does. It goes really bad. Um, I think that Jeb Hawk's death proves ultimately how much Carolyn really did love him. It wasn't just the fact of them sleeping together. You really had a true a supernatural creature fall completely in love with this woman. What a story! One of the most underrated stories in Dark Shadows history is the Leviathan arc. It's a hell of a ride. Go check it out if you want to. I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. I think it's a hell of a ride. I really do. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think I made every point I wanted to. I also think that to put a bow on this video, if you want to look at pivotal, pivotal turning points, look at don't just look at Carol and Jeb. Look at Jeb and Bruno's relationship and how things change. Look what Jeb starts his own paranoia begins to do to him. He begins to not trust the people around him, and that includes who the Leviathan plant. It's not just Barnabas he doesn't trust. Barnabas is on the outs by the time him and Bruno are fighting. And again, the Jeb slowly but surely is not trusting people around him, and again making them feel less than, like Bruno. And he causes a lot of his own headaches as a character who's George Lucas talks about how, and people talk about how Anakin Skywalker was a teenager. How can a teenager become so evil, take over the world, take over the galaxy? And George Lucas says that's exactly how it should be done. A teenager, somebody who's so immature and so insecure of themselves, they turn to the dark side. They turn evil. On this sense, when you look at Jeb, he's so insecure, not just of himself, but of the people around him. The only person he constantly can rely on is who? Carolyn. And as crazy as that sounds, it's also true because of his love for her and her love for him. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys have a great night.